Hi, welcome to the class of programming in C++ conducted by Yourself. So let me briefly first tell you what we are going to learn today. So I will start the class by describing the concept of procedural versus object-oriented program. Okay, then we will discuss about the evolution of C++ from C and what is the history behind it. Then I will briefly describe a simple program to illustrate the benefits of C++. Then what are the available compilers present in the market to compile a C++ code, and what are the use of debugging techniques or debuggers for debugging a C++ code. So let me first quickly go through the concept of procedural versus object-oriented program. So in order to describe the concept of procedural program, let us first go through a small problem that basically calculates the salary of every employee in a given company. Okay. Now, in order to solve this program in a procedural programming approach, what we basically do is we create a flow chart which basically tells what is the flow of execution for a given program, and for every block then we create functions or procedures to perform some smaller tasks. So the idea of procedural programming is to first to create a flowchart for a given problem, and then to to create smaller functions or procedures for every block of the given flowchart. Okay, for example, the programming languages like Fortran, Pascal, or COBOL are basically procedural programming languages. Okay, so it just start from the top to bottom. It start from the top and keep executing smaller set of functions to till it reach the final execution point. Okay, now the same problem can be so here you can see means how the functions are. So you need to first check for the employee kind, whether he is a permanent employee or a contractor. If he is a permanent employee, then what is the method of calculating the salary, annual salary? If he is a contractor, then what is the method of calculating the total salary based on hourly rate? This kind of things. Okay. uh, there is another approach called as object oriented programming, that basically what it does, we divide the program into a set of entities, okay, called as classes, and each entity has its own members and has its own functions to execute on the members. Okay, for example, here I can say that you have every employee present in the company can be represented as an employee class. Now this employee class has a set of members like employee ID, you have employee type, okay, and you have set of functions like calculate salary, okay, or print salary. Similarly, every employee can be categorized into two kinds of employees. One is called salaried or permanent employee, and another is called contractors. Now every salaried employee has certain extra attributes or extra members other than employee ID or employee type. Okay, so the employee type of a salaried or a permanent employee is permanent employee. Okay, similarly for contractors the employee type will be contractors. Okay, and for and the calculate salary will be different for contractor class and for permanent employee class. So basically the main advantage of object oriented programming is code reusability and structured or modular programming capability. Okay, so there are various advantages like uh, So the main advantage is this code reusability and modular program. Earlier, when people were using C, they tried to achieve this object oriented programming technique through by using C, but they have to they had to do a lot of twist, okay, to achieve this oops concepts in C. Okay, so oops concepts in C, in order to achieve that, is quite cumbersome or difficult. So what this person did, this person is known as B. Stroustrup. He was working for Bell Labs, which got renamed to AT&T Lab. Okay, so he in 1983 developed a program. So it basically named it as C with class. So he introduced the concept of C classes into C. Okay, then later various other features got embedded into the C++, like exception handling, generic programming through templates, standard template libraries, etc. The question which many people ask is that, is there anything that we cannot achieve by C and we can achieve by C++? So the answer is no. Everything that can be achieved by C++, we can do it by C by some tricks. Okay, but the what is the advantage C++ provide is it provides simpler constructs to achieve those tasks. So when you say how can I achieve generic programming in C, how can C++, can we achieve it in C? Yes, you can. Okay, how can you achieve inheritance or polymorphism? You can achieve that in C by proper use of structures and unions, but C++ provides you more capability. Okay, you can simply write some basic constructs to perform that object oriented concepts. Okay, so let me give you a small example. So let us first write a small C program. The program is to swap two variables, okay, of different types and then print the result. Now the types can be variable, they can be different. It can be int, it can be real, it can be char. Okay, so in order to write it in C, the dumb way is to create three different swap functions. So swap one, so, which takes int a, int b, int star a, int star b. Okay, then another swap 2 which takes real star a and real star b. Okay, why I am using pointers? Because I have to change the content and print the result outside this function. That is why I am using the pointers. Okay, so this is called pass by reference. So instead of creating three different functions, what I can also do is like this. So let me give you this C version of the program. So we define an enum. The enum which basically tells me what is the type on which I need to perform the swapping action. This can be int, real or char. I create a single swap function that takes basically three arguments: type, then void star a and void star b. Okay, then based on the uh, type, the value of this type, whether it is int or char or real, I basically perform the cast operation. I type cast two corresponding types. Okay, and then I perform the swap operation. Okay, so you can see here this swap function is almost 35 lines of code just to handle int and char. Okay, if you put real, then it will be another 4 lines of code. You can, okay, so in this way, uh, but in C++ this is very simple through the use of templates. So just this is a C++ version of the code. Okay, so what we do in C++ is we define swap with the keyword template that basically it takes a generic type t as an argument, and the argument of this function is t and a and t ampersand b. This ampersand tells me that it is a reference to an object. Okay, so in C++ we have concept of reference. We'll study this in few classes, after a few classes. Now with these 3 lines of code I can compile, I can basically perform any kind of any types of swap. Okay, so here is a small example. So you have a and b as 3 and 4. As soon as I call this swap with ab, the C++ compiler automatically transform this piece of code into a function, okay, with swap with an argument as int. Similarly, seeing this function swap c and d, which is of type string, the C++ compiler creates another version of swap with argument as string. Okay, so as a programmer I don't have to do anything, everything will be done by the compiler, C++ compiler. So this is the power of C++. Okay, so the generic programming stuffs get much easier with C++. So this is a small example. Now let us try to see what are the available compilers to compile a C++ code. What I will be using is called G++ compiler. So this G++ is a compiler enhanced for, so it is an C++ version of GCC compiler. So what we do is we just invoke the command G++ with the file name program.cpp. So this will basically compiles and creates an executable with name a.exe. Okay, so you can simply run this a.exe to see the contents. Okay, so you can see here initially before swap a contains the value 3 and b contains the value 4, and after swap a contains the value 4 and b contains the value 3. Okay, so this way there are other compilers available in the market, like Microsoft has its own interactive development environment called IDE, which is called Visual Studio. Okay, Microsoft Visual Studio, it has a C++ compiler. Similarly, NetBeans has its own C++ compiler. So but we'll be using a Unix version of the C++ compiler, that is G++, since it is heavily used. Another important tool that we should know before writing large programs in C++ is the debugging tool. Okay, many times what we programmers basically make some mistakes. It may remove some code, means unknowingly they have made some mistakes which gets caught during execution of the program, and that need to be fixed. Now in order to find the bug, we used what we call as a debugger. Okay, for example, here suppose as a programmer I forgot to write this code. Okay, b is equal to temp, I forgot to write. Then so this basically is a comment, so I just remove this. So I forgot to write this code, b is equal to temp. Okay, and I compile the program. And when I execute it, you'll see that I am getting the wrong result, because after swap a is getting the value of b, that is correct 4, but b is not getting the value of a. Okay, so I need to find where I have made the mistake. Okay, and to do that, we have tools available in the market called as debugger, and one such debugger is called GDB. So what we do basically, we have to in Unix environment we first create a debug build. So we first create a debug build of, so let me write it down here. So debugger. Okay, so first step is in Linux or Unix or through Ciguin. So you can download the free version of Ciguin from net. So what we do is we first create debug version of executable. Okay, so to do that, what we do is we invoke the command g++ with -g option. Okay, so we have file name .cpp. Remember, every C++ file we write has should have an extension CPP or CXX or CC. Okay, so we can write filename.cpp or filename.cxx or filename.cc. Okay, after that, uh, so after so every file name in C++ should have this extension of .cpp or .cxx or .cc. So we use the command g++ with an extra option called -g. That basically creates a debug version of the executable. Okay, then use gdb to debug the program. Okay, so let me show you how we basically debug the program using GDB. Okay, so let us see how we debug a given C++ program using Ciguin or in Linux environment. So the first thing is to create a debug version of the executable. So how we do that? So we use g++ with -g option. Okay, first program.cpp. Okay, so when you do this with -g option, it creates a debug version of the executable. So a.exe gets created with a debug version. Okay, now you load it through a debugger, that is gdb. So you use this command gdb with a.exe. Okay, so this debugger, it basically loads the program into it. Okay, now so let me tell you what are the various options, just briefly, what are available in the gdb. So the gdb, so suppose you want to see the file content, so there is a command called list. So list file name with colon line number will take you to the given line in the given file. For example, suppose I want to see the what is the content of the file first program.cpp at line number, suppose 25. So list first program.cpp colon 25 will give you the contents of this. So at line number 25 it has the std out after swap this. Now there is the concept of giving a breakpoint. Okay, so we can give a breakpoint. So breakpoint basically tells you where to stop while executing a given program. So suppose I write b. Okay, the function name, suppose I want to stop at the beginning, so b main. Okay, then you will stop there. Okay, so what we do is we put b main and then we run the executable. So run will, so while running the program it will stop at main. Okay, now there is a command. So in order to go step by step, there is a command called next. Okay, so next will do what? It will assign a equal to 3. Okay, so you suppose you want to know the value assigned to a, so p print a, you will get the value that a contains, that is 3. Okay, now you want to go to second line. So we want to suppose what is wrong in the swap function we need to debug. So what we do is we step at line 20. Okay, so this basically you can see here, it basically enters into the function swap with type as int. So this has been automatically generated by the compiler. Okay, So it first assigned temp is equal to A, you see, then it assigned A is equal to B. Okay, so you can see here after this, so if you print temp, you'll get the value 3, print A, you'll get the value 4. Okay, but B has not been assigned and the program and the function just reaches the end of function. So that is the bug that the debugger through debugger we found. So what we have to do, we just need to assign this thing. Okay, you just need to write b is equal to temp. Okay, after that you quit it, you again compile it. Okay, so and after fixing this bug, you recompile it and then run .exe. You'll see that now the content of the value has been proper. So this way the debug tools help in debugging a given program, and for debugging C++ program we'll be using this debugger called GDB. So as a task I will advise you people to get familiarized with GDB. Second is to get familiarized with Cygwin, how to, so there is a free version of Cygwin available in the net, you can go through that, and we'll be directly starting the basic concepts of C++ from the next class. Okay, thanks.